Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of First Impression Sports Talk. I'm Jasmine Pollock, the host. We're going to talk a lot about Russell Westbrook signing with the Clippers and what it takes to make a dominant franchise in sports. So let's get started.
Welcome to Jasmine Pollock's First Impression Sports Talk, the fastest growing sports talk show in the country. And now, here's your host, Jasmine Pollock.
Welcome back to Jazz's First Impression Sports Talk. I'm Jasmine Pollock, the host. So to kick the day off, we're going to talk about what makes a dominant franchise. How do you make a successful franchise in sports, whether that's NFL, NHL, NBA, MLB, etc. So let's bring in Jeremiah, let's bring in Cole so we can have a deep dive on what it takes to build a solid franchise. So Cole, I want to start with you. Let's start from a football sense. So we've seen a lot of great dynasties over the past 2 decades. The Patriots, of course, your Steelers, the Packers, Dolphins. There's been a lot of great franchises in the past few years in the NFL. But what does it take to be a good franchise? What do you have to do as an owner, as a general manager, in order to make sure everything is cohesive to win championships?
Surround yourself with smart people. That means the general manager does not do all the work. He has a staff. He has a team around him. Now, there's so many great franchises in professional sports. Look at one of the things that they all do well. Draft. That is how you build a team in the NFL. Look at all these recent franchises that have won and that have been successful. For example, the Philadelphia Eagles just made it to the Super Bowl, even though they lost. They're on the upswing again because they've done well in the draft. Look at, not recently, but the Steelers when they were winning their Super Bowls back, their 6 Super Bowls, and all those Hall of Famers they have, and a future Hall of Fame quarterback, Ben Roethlisberger. He will be a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Agreed.
During the 2000s when they won 06 and they won one in 09, and then they went to one in 11, I believe. Look at all those players they had. They all came through the draft.
Yep.
And then you get those other surrounding pieces through trades and through free agency. Now, the NBA is a lot different than how you build a team in the NFL. Because
Absolutely.
The NBA, it's just a bunch of super teams. Just players recruiting one another. That's just how it works in the NBA. And that's exactly why I hate the NBA. Watch it. I think it's a garbage professional sports league, but that's a conversation for a different day. Now, the NFL, you've seen a lot of teams turn it around quick.
Yes.
That is one thing about the NFL. You've seen teams, they go on that up. They can have 1-2 good drafts. They could be legitimate contenders soon.
Right.
Look at the Bengals. I don't know. How long was the Bengals rebuild? 2-3 years, really?
2-3 years. Yep.
Yeah. 2-3 years. They were in the Super Bowl. And they're on the upswing, too, as well. And they're going to be a dominant franchise in the next couple of years. They just even though they lost in the AFC Championship game, going to the Super Bowl and then going to the AFC Championship game, that's pretty impressive.
Of course.
2 years. So it really comes down through the draft, surrounding yourself with smart people. And then when your team gets older, fans, you have to realize this. I know some fans out there get really angry, and some of it I understand. For example, I am just going to throw this team out there, the Miami Marlins, when they traded Giancarlo Stanton, Christian Yelich, and some of those other players on their team.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why they did that is they weren't winning with them.
Nope.
So why should you even have them? So that means you go and you build your team from the bottom up. No team in professional sports is built from top to bottom. Doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
There has to be that ground floor. That's your prospects. And that is getting the right people in your organization to help make you a competitor quickly.
Agreed.
That is always the goal of a rebuild. Now, some, like the MLB, fans don't like to hear this. It takes about 5 years to rebuild an MLB team.
Mm.
5 years, and it could take 7 at the latest. It does take a while because you're getting those young players. They're not coming in and they're not stepping in right away.
Yep.
Now,
Right.
the Pirates have been rebuilding for about 50 years, but that's besides the point. They just have morons running the organization. So that's a different conversation for a different day. But it all comes down through the draft, getting smart people in your organizations, and building from the bottom up to the top.
Right.
And that surrounding cast. And then what you do is then when you need some of those pieces later, when your team starts to get good, that's when you start to build. You bring in your veterans around those young guys that can truly
Agreed.
help your team build and make them successful. But you've seen all these smart teams. Now you can't win every year. That's
No.
just the reality. As much as I wish the Penguins would win the Stanley Cup this year, that's probably not going to happen. And their window is slammed shut. But you know what? The Penguins, they brought in Lemieux before those years before they got Crosby and Malkin.
Yep.
They were too good. They had a good draft. They've had some really smart people in the organization, smart minds. Okay, it wasn't just one guy. It wasn't just Ray Shero. It wasn't just Dan Bylsma and Mike Sullivan who have won the Penguins those cups. It has always been built through the bottom up to the top. And the Penguins, they will have to rebuild again, but I have every ounce in faith that they will rebuild the right way because they're good. They've won 5 Stanley Cups, and it's because of that reason.
And I agree. I couldn't agree more with what you said because when we look at a lot of these franchises, like right now, you could say the team to beat is the Kansas City Chiefs right now. They are. For the 5 straight years, they've been to the AFC Championship game, been to 3 Super Bowls already. So when we look at it, it's all about drafting well. It's all about drafting well. You have to get the right pieces. You have to put everything into place and work on your O-line and defensive line. Like, that is important. Everyone's like, oh, look, we need a receiver. No, you need protection. That's what we look at. That's why I feel like the Cincinnati Bengals are in a bind right now because the O-line is still their weakness. It's still there. They have a lot of great skill position players, but if Joe Burrow's not protected, what is he supposed to do? But in order to make a good franchise, I can agree with you. Of course, you have to draft well. And then in the front office, you have to have guys who are smart and understand the game. You can't just have somebody, I like football. I'm not really into it, but I just bought the team just because. No, you need to know the game. Know the game, even in any sport. Know the game that you're owning or you're a general manager in, so that way okay, this is the need. We need to go get this person and make sure you budget well. A lot of these teams, when you look at the Nets, I mean, you have 3 top guys in Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and James Harden, and then you had a lot of money going in and out of those guys. Now all 3 of them are gone. So all that money you could have saved, all that time you could have saved to get really good young players and draft very well, you put your bet on those 3 and it didn't work. But that's why it's so important in sports to make sure that in the front office that you put everything together and you make sure you're making the right decisions with the money, the cap, understanding all the ins and outs of that, so that way you're able to get some of those young guns. And then of course you get the veterans to put around and you make a good team like the Eagles. Remember when they lost against Washington? You know what they went to go do? They went to go get Ndamukong Suh. We need more people. Let's get some veterans in here so that we can give the guys, the young guys, somebody to look up to and different things like that with the young talent that they have. All these teams that have been successful drafted well, they budgeted very well, and they knew who to get for what reason. You know what I mean? But Jeremiah, for you, now you're a Miami fan. Anything Miami, what does the Miami teams need to do? The Marlins, the Panthers, Miami Hurricanes, Dolphins. Now the Dolphins are up and coming. I think they're up and coming. But do you think that what is going on in Miami sports to where Miami sports is not the talk of the town like it once was?
Well, when it comes to our different franchises, I can start with, of course, the Marlins, since they're the lowest on the list. The Miami Marlins itself. I mean, I do agree when we did traded our players before, because what's the point, just like Cole said, of you being here if we're just losing and just causing you your great years of you being
Mm-hmm.
here. But my only thing is when we're trying to rebuild, the organizational factors in the front office, we're always hitting roadblocks.
Yeah.
And you have so many players that be coming here, and you have so many that leave out because a lot of them don't even want to play for this organization because
Mm-hmm.
so much of a headache at the same time, because you got so many things in and out. Of course, Miami is a beautiful place to play at,
Of
and of
course.
course we got
Right.
a nice
Right.
stadium, what the Marlins Stadium, but at the same time is dysfunctional starting from the front office, and that's why there's no increase when it comes to anything positive within the team, because it starts within everything, like I said, from the front office.
Right.
For the
And
Miami Heat, I would just say right now, we're under a lot of different scrutiny when it came to living into the past of trying to draft too many undrafted players. And
Yeah.
right now,
Yeah.
I understand, we have a lot of underdogs on the team, but you also need to have yourself some superstars as well, because
Yes.
that's what
Especially in
made
the
the Miami
NBA.
Heat things work out.
Especially in the NBA.
Yes, because that's what made the Miami Heat teams work out. You had yourself, of course, you had yourselves the LeBron, you had yourself a D Wade, and you had yourself a Bosh. But people forget what made that bench very special whenever they went on the bench to where they needed the rest. You had your underdogs to come in and fill those places, like a Norris Cole, you had a Mario Chalmers, they also had a Battier. A lot of guys that were always looked over. So if you're gonna have a balance to where there's not too much ego, but you also understand you have
Yes.
yourself some underdog, you also can win. And for the last one, which I would say for the Miami Dolphins, they're heading in a good direction only because they had to get rid of a lot of dead weight, which they had came upon, especially in the years of, I would just say, the 2010s, all
Oh
the way
yeah.
to
Oh
2010s,
man.
going through Ryan Tannehill and having a lot of different. Of course, we lost a lot of different receivers over time. Brandon Marshall, Javaris Landry, and a lot of great ones over time. But for us, it can't be always reliant on those guys all the time. And
Yeah.
that's one thing that we had to learn, especially going into 2020 and 2021. We
Yeah.
have to find ourselves a franchise quarterback.
Yes.
Now, when it comes to Tua, he has to stay healthy from him for himself, because this team
agree.
is a very big glue when it comes to getting themselves into a playoff and maybe going further. When it comes to receiving wise, we just hired ourselves a new defensive coordinator. We're heading in
Yep.
the right direction. The only thing is just about injuries and just staying healthy. But whenever you have yourself a team, just like Cole said, you have to build yourself from ground up. You have to start from the beginning, get rid of your dead weights and put in your right pieces, and
Yeah.
you can make yourself a championship team.
And I agree. And you look at, and like we said, you look at some of the great franchises, even this dangerous Steelers team. They had everything. Literally, I mean, the front office, the players, I mean, Hall of Famers everywhere. And they were that Steelers team, Cole, was ridiculous. Those Steelers teams were just scary
Yes.
all
Yeah.
across the board. They were
Oh
scary.
man,
They were
hard
really
this.
And
scary.
I mean, wreaking havoc. That whole division, of course, you had the Steelers, but then you had the Ravens also, who were they were just a bunch of good stacked franchises. And now it seems like the Ravens and the Steelers, who are great franchise teams, are rebuilding and restarting. And usually you want to see, usually when you see franchise like that, even Chicago, the Packers, those franchises, you want to keep revamping and replacing certain players. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and it seems like the Steelers and the Ravens hit a roadblock when it came to that. Like, I mean, you had Hall of Famers on both teams. I mean,
Yes.
championship winning teams. And then when those guys retired or they went elsewhere, now we got to take a step back. I mean, it's
Yeah,
just it's crazy.
because the rivalry is there, but it's just not how it used to be when it's just like, man, I just hate you. Like people sit in front, that would be big prime time. It's
Yeah,
right now a lot there. They have a lot of insides that they have to be dealing with to get them teams back into place.
right.
Getting those stars and everything else. But I feel like it will come back. It just, I guess, takes a little bit of time.
Um, just to go off those points, you guys made some very solid points. Budgeting, so important. Look at the Vegas Golden Knights in the NHL. They can't freaking budget. They can't budget. I don't know who they have running their organization. They made the cup once. They're going to make the playoffs this year probably. But guess what? They haven't been able to budget.
No.
They haven't, because they've been constantly having cap issues. Now, the Penguins have cap issues, but in this year, they've budgeted really poorly because they have $900,000 in cap space left. Yes, when your team is really good, you're not going to have much cap space.
Yeah.
But one of the reasons they got themselves is because of stupid contracts, bad signings. Also, to the Marlins, good point. One of the reasons why nobody wants to come and play there is because your owner doesn't want to pay those players.
No, exactly. At all.
If you want to win, you have to spend a little bit of money.
Yes.
Baseball, you can't have a $50 million payroll now and expect to win.
Right. Right. Exactly.
You can't expect to win like that.
Yeah.
And that's exactly why the Pirates, one of the biggest reasons is that they don't know how to draft. They can't develop players properly. And guess what? Those guys that they do get, well, okay, they can draft them. They end up being good. But they don't hit their star. They don't get their stardom here. They get it somewhere else. Because these teams know how to work with them and their strengths. The Pirates don't use player-to-player strengths.
Yeah.
They didn't do that. They didn't do that with Garrett Cole. They didn't do that with Charlie Morton. They pitched to contact.
Yeah, and that's another point that we forgot to mention is player development. I'll give you an example.
That's big.
Look at what the Carolina Panthers did. So Christian McCaffrey gets drafted by them, right? They weren't using McCaffrey well at all. But he goes to the 49ers. They knew how to use him. They have a better franchise. They have a better system in place, a better coach, a better front office. They have everything in place to make sure. And guess what? You didn't see him get injured. He played ever since he got there, he played. Whereas the Carolina Panthers had him running in between the tackles. Whereas the 49ers, a lot of scheme, a lot of outside, a lot of different things going on that helped him. They knew how to utilize him. So when you, as a team also, you have to know how to develop your players, even at the college level. Now, I'm not going to say any names. Remy knows who I'm talking about, developing players and making sure that if you're recruiting a lot of people and you're putting people in positions, you need to work with those players to get them up to speed. There's some players that you're just not going to be able to mold into a certain position. But if you are recruiting, drafting all these different types of players, you need to work with those players. Everybody is so quick to, let's put in this trade. And then you're running out of money. The money goes here. The money goes there. These teams are in trouble with cap and different things like that instead of developing the players. But Cole, you have 2 minutes. Talk to us about the Pirates, the Penguins. Tell us what's going on and what your vision is before we go to break.
Pittsburgh, just as Roman Reigns said, acknowledge me because I am the future of Pittsburgh sports media. I'm just saying. So, Penguins, yeah, they might not make the playoffs. Well, this is why they might not make the playoffs. Crappy goaltending. Their third and fourth line suck. Jeff Carter is 37 years old. He's old. They shouldn't have re-signed him. Hextall, he's still missing in action. Is he hibernating for the winter? I mean, hopefully he's coming out of hibernating soon. I don't know. Trade deadline's coming up. Might be a bad idea to be going into hibernation for the Penguins, especially if you're Ron Hextall. $900,000 in cap space. Not good. What, are you going to trade a first-round pick? That's a bad idea because guess what? They're a lot closer to rebuilding than they are to winning another Stanley Cup. Sorry, Pittsburgh. You don't like the truth, but that is the truth. Pirates started spring training. I don't really know what's going on until the spring training games start. All I know is I think they are going to win somewhere between 70 and 75 games this year. That is better, and they still have a lot of improvement to make, and hopefully they will make that improvement. What else is going on? That's I mean, that's pretty much it. Tristan Jarry will be starting in net tonight for the Penguins. Thank God he's back because Casey DeSmith sucks. Also, as well, they had a 3-goal lead Friday night. Stop blowing leads. It's a 60-minute game. You have to play the full 60 minutes. And if you think that blowing leads is going to work in the playoffs, you blow a 3-goal lead in the playoffs, you're done. You're done. You won't even make it past the first round. You have to learn to protect the lead and play smart defensive hockey when you have that lead. So they're slow, they're old, and the GM, if they miss the playoffs or they don't get out of the first round, he's fired. He needs to be gone. I think he has not done a good job as general manager. He had a plan. He brought back all the stars. How did that work out? Right now, it doesn't seem like it's working out too much because they might not make the playoffs. And if they go on a 4 or 5 game losing streak, they're done.
And on that note, we're going to head to a short break. And when we come back out, we're going to talk about Russell Westbrook signing with the Los Angeles Clippers after just being with the Lakers. But we're going to get into it. So we'll be right back with the short break.
I'm Leon Thomas with the Leon Thomas Group. Podcast, virtual events, webinars, streaming shows, and so much more. We want to be your partner in all things virtual.
Welcome back to Jazz's First Impression Sports Talk. If you'd like to see past episodes of my show and get in contact with me, you can contact me on Twitter, which is @JazzyEsque. And then if you want to go to my YouTube channel, you can go to Jasmine's First Impression Sports Talk. So the final topic of the day, we might get into some other things too if we have time. But Jeremiah, let's talk about this guy, Russell Westbrook. Now, Jamie's in here. Me and him talked about it. I don't like the move. I don't like it because, for one, when I look at Russ is a ball of energy. I'm not going to ever say he doesn't give 110%. Not ever going to say it. But his whole career has always been getting over and getting in his own way. It's always been him getting in his own way and, doing what Russ wants to do. Now, Clippers have shooters. He's had good teams around him. He has Kevin Durant, he had James Harden, LeBron, blah, 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 Paul George. But it's always he got in his own way. So, Jeremiah, to this particular move, was this the right move for the Clippers? And why? Do you see this propelling the Clippers to championship status?
No, I think that it decreases their championship chances, because in a way, a sort, this kind of move almost just reminds me of, I would just say, the Nets move when they tried to get James Harden. And this is my problem with a lot of, and we would just talk about this last week. This is my problem, especially with a lot of these organizations, like a place like Clippers. This is when you allow your players to try to make too many moves like this, especially Paul George, champion this as he wants to have Russell Westbrook on the side with him. That's a big problem to me, because just alone, that team right there, they were doing okay, just what they really had. They was like 4th place in the East. I mean, in
the West, yeah.
So,
right.
It was no problem. You didn't need to bring nobody in, but I would just say do about and get maybe another type of point guard. You didn't really need another big ball dominant superstar point guard to try to go inside there. When it comes to Russell Westbrook, he is a guy that's mostly all about himself. He likes to look for certain stats. And of course, he has maybe good intentions, was just like, man, I got this energy. I just feel it so much. But still, at the same time, it can cost so much because he's looking so much to, I need to be the hero for us to win. When that right there costs a lot of team at the end of the day. This man, Westbrook, had so many different chances when it came to, after OKC, going to the Houston Rockets, not to mention going to the Lakers. and now being here with the Clippers right now, you just can't ignore those certain signs. And for that spacing and everybody having the ball at many different times is going to create a bunch of clutterness and a bunch of different havocs. And I just know for a person like Kawhi, he's not going to have too much patience because he's a man of many small words. So
he
when
doesn't speak at all.
he doesn't speak at all. And when it comes to Paul George wanting him over there, it's more of a friendship aspect because you've
Yeah.
seen when it came to OKC, he is not the Westbrook that was in OKC. He has, of course, a lot of energy, but as far as his shootability and everything else, it is not there anymore. And people need to get that through their head right now. He can play good coming off of the bench and kind of maneuvering, but they're bringing him in to be a starter and to play majority of the game, and I don't see how that's going to work for all three of them.
My thing about Russ, he's so frustrating to me. But even though he is, I like Russ, I do. But it's so frustrating how he plays because he has all that energy, but his 3-point percentage is not good. The turnover machine, where if Russell went in the lab, he could, if Russ went in the lab and really MVP Russ, you know what I'm talking about? Okay,
Yes.
Get in the lab and really work on your shot, especially as you get older. We're in a league now where, it's a shooting league now. You don't have to go get physical. It's not a physical league anymore. So, all you have to do, get in the lab, work on your shots, work on understanding how to slow down and okay, Russ, just slow it down and just let things, happen
Right.
naturally.
Right.
He goes in there and does what Russ does. But I think when the Lakers got from up under Russ, or vice versa, either way, but when they separated from Russ, when they traded Russ, it was a matter of who wanted the headache, who wanted to accept the fact that this is who Russ is, and
Right.
different things like that.
Right. Mm-hmm.
The biggest question, I knew Jane was going to comment, so let's read it. Paul George had MVP season with Russ and OKC, more shooters to pass than the Lakers, bargain buyout of contract. If he can limit turnovers and better shot selection, it can work. And that's the thing. It's the if with Russ. He has the energy. He is a phenomenal teammate, but it's about if he can do that. If he can say, boom, oh, well, he said the Suns are stacked for a championship. Exactly. I think this trade is not better than Durant going to the Suns. It's just not. This doesn't make the Clippers any better. Oh, man, the Clippers are, it's, no. In the long run, Russ has to get outside of himself and say, you know what? I'm going to let things happen. Now, Ty Lue is a phenomenal coach. He is. But Russ been with a lot of superstars. That's all I'm saying. He's been with, of course, Durant. He's been with James Harden twice, 2 different James Hardens, the one that was the 6th man with OKC and then the MVP in Houston. Then you had Paul George and you had LeBron. And when I tell you, the question is if he can overcome. That's been the question every time he goes to a certain franchise, is if he can. Lately he hasn't.
Because I would just say the emphasis why that is, because many people forget when it came to Westbrook and KD, they were a great pair when they were together.
They
really were an
were.
awesome pair when they were together. But the time that KD left, it seemed like the media and plus Russ was just in that mode of, I have to be a hero now. If it's not me, then it's nobody else.
Yeah.
And but the sad thing is that hasn't changed from his mindset through these 10 years.
Durant leaving him like that, especially in that fashion, to go to that team at that time, it was bad. It was bad.
And those things are put in because remember he had the triple doubles after that, and it was something like nobody has seen before when it came to the meal where it was pushing this and it was like he needs to average this, and that thing inside of Westbrook's head that still has never left him. He thinks that he needs to still do that when it's like right now you're in a different state of your career to where you don't have to do that. All you have to do is just play your game and what you're assigned to do. Right now, when it comes to, especially when he was playing with the Lakers, trying to take over too much, forcing certain turnovers or shooting certain shots more inside of his head because he always had to try to prove something, whether it's doing it for my town or like the place that I'm from, and also going with the Rockets. And right now, for the Clippers and stuff, of course, I understand that he's going to be doing okay, but I don't think it's going to be enough for him to go to no championship.
No, if you look at the Clippers, let's just say hypothetically, if we said, Jazz, pick the Suns, the Suns right now with Durant or the Clippers right now with Westbrook, I'm picking the Suns.
Yes.
Now both teams have the people on the team that have egos, that have, these different types of things, but I'm picking the Suns. I think the Suns are up and coming, but I think right now for Chris Paul, this is his last leg.
You want me to be honest? I don't have either Suns or Clippers winning a championship this year.
Wait, hold on. What? Okay. Now I have the Suns going to the Western. It all depends on the health of the team.
I go to the Western.
So neither one of them, you don't think, who's coming out of the West?
To me, who I think is coming out of the West, I think is going to be a surprise team.
I can't
put my thing on it, but my only reason I would say that is, of course, I already know Durant is a dog. I already know D-Book is a dog. But just like you said, with injuries, and I don't know what to expect from the Suns. I haven't seen them all three of them play yet.
I'm not comfortable with AN at all in their health.
Yes.
I'm not comfortable with it.
And not to mention, just like we were just talking about with the teams, you need to have yourself a bench to go far in this league. Because whenever your star players are off, because I've seen Booker in those moments where he is off, it seems like the team hits a complete shutdown. I know what KD can do. He can deliver when it comes to doing a lot of big shots and everything else. But when, let's just say, if CP is not available, having that leader on the floor during those times of the playoffs and when things get chippy, who is going to be that guy?
Right.
Or who is going to maneuver to step in a Chris Paul's place just in case if anything happens?
Right. Now, I saw Jamie's comment. He said, I'd still rather go to war with Russ than Kyrie. Ooh. That's interesting. This is why I say that's interesting, because I don't totally disagree with that, because if you think about this, and I like Kyrie. Kyrie's phenomenal. But when we look at what happened with Brooklyn, and then when him and LeBron got into it, when he had the issues with the Celtics, so it would start with the Cavs. Him and LeBron get into it, and he wants to trade out. Then he goes to Celtics. They have some rifts there. You go to Brooklyn, some rifts there.
Oh yeah, if you're talking about long term, I would say a Russ, because Kyrie is all about availability.
Yes. Whereas with Russ gonna give you, he gonna play them 82 games. He's gonna give you that full energy for sure. Like, it's just his game. Now for the game,
it's Kyrie all the way.
For a game, I'm picking Kyrie for a game. I need to win. Like, I need to score. Yes. Go to Kyrie. But if we're talking long term, you pick Russ. But they're both kind of liabilities in a certain instance. But this all goes to show our last segment talking about building a team and understanding your players and understanding who you putting around there. That's all the premise of knowing how to build a team and making sure you have the right budget, making sure that you have the correct coach that can put things together and unify the talent.
Right.
And I feel like that's what makes dynasties. That's what you see in all these different sports, that, NBA, NFL, NHL, MLB, you have a lot of these dynasties. These teams know how to draft well. They know how to get the right players. They know how to do well in the trade. That's why the Lakers have been so mediocre ever since they won the chip, to where, like, Rob Pelinka was not. There was things in place that shouldn't have been in place. You know what I mean? There's players that shouldn't have been in certain positions. And that's why it's important for these front offices to really understand the game that is being played. You can't just go out there. And I know me and my dad had this conversation. You know, he was saying he doesn't think an owner should know the game really well. I said, I think they should know the game. You should know the game. Just because you're a billionaire and you're making a lot of money, you still have to learn and know the game and know the players. You have to.
Definitely.
And look at all the teams right now. Let's talk NFL for a sense before we get out of here. Look at Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys. Look at them.
Yes.
So Jerry Jones, I think Jerry Jones drafts well, fairly. I think he gets the right people in place. However,
big star player.
You don't have the coach right here, the coach that can combat what's going on. Warriors of healthy Suns in the West. Yeah, I agree with you, Jamie. But when we look at it, that's why the Dallas Cowboys haven't gotten back to what they were back in the 90s, because Jerry Jones has overstepped what the coach. Jerry Jones is not going to be able to get one of those coaches like a Sean Payton or a Bill Belichick or guys like that, even a Bruce Arians. You're not going to be able to get a coach like that because they're very hard-nosed type of football guys. And Jerry Jones, that's why the Cowboys going to be the Cowboys. That's why they're going to stay like this. So they have their moments and then they fall short. And that's just what it is. That's why, look at the Chiefs. That's why the Chiefs are a dynasty right now, because the Chiefs drafted well. They have the right coach. They have the right team to continue to compete. That's just what it is. That's how you bring a team together. That's why you put teams together. But that wraps up First Impression Sports Talk. Thank you, Jeremiah. Thank you, Cole. Thank you, Remy, Jamie, everybody. Thank you all for just giving your comments, giving your thoughts about these things. This whole sports world is completely blowing up with a lot of different things. College basketball is about to ramp up. College softball is coming. I'm really excited about that. And then, of course, XFL. We'll get into XFL probably next week to give you guys a more in-depth view about what the XFL is and what that means for, future players and draft picks and different things like that. But that wraps up the show. See you guys next Monday for more on First Impression Sports Talk.